angels, it's Hailey Reese, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so grateful that you are here, and I hope that you are having an absolutely fantastic morning, afternoon, or night, whatever it is for you when this video finally reaches you. Today's video is a dark one. It's an eerie one, and it is entirely unresolved. More so, it's an unsolved mystery up until this day. Today's paranormal experience has terrified people from all over, many of which having difficulty sleeping once they've heard it. Welcome back to yet another day in our 31 days of Halloween here on my channel, where I am uploading a new video every single day from now until Halloween. And as I just said, today's video is a spooky one. Now, when it comes to paranormal experiences, possessions, or hauntings, more often than not, one way or another, there is some sort of resolution. But again, with this case, it's very open-ended. And I'm very curious to know what you guys think happened. So with all of that being said, sit back, relax, maybe turn a light on, because it's about to get dark. I'm approaching the end of my life. Don't be sad for me. I've lived a very good life. But at some point, our journeys must end, and I fear my time is not far now. My life expectancy has never been long. That's a story I'm tired of telling. Just know that I've lived longer than doctors ever thought I would, and I have made peace, at least with that part of my life. I have spent much of my last years replaying what happened a decade ago and trying to piece together the string of events. I have carried guilt my entire life for what happened, and if I don't share this story, I fear what happened will die with me. Only two of us really know the truth, but you'd have to find her to hear hers. My sister Nazelia has been missing or dead for the past decade, and with the events that happened, I'm really not sure which outcome I'd prefer. I never get in a knot over what people think. Quite frankly, with my approaching mortality, I don't care what you have to say about what you believe. All I need is my sister's story told. I have searched for answers alone, and to free myself from the evil, I fear I must share what it did to us, to her, and to others out loud. I can't carry alone anymore. It was spring. Nazelia and I were working at the same shop after graduating. We had rented a small apartment in town together and were both dating around. Nazelia was 2 years older than me, but you'd never have known it. Everyone thought we were twins, and we liked it like that. We shared clothes, makeup, friends, hobbies. Two of our friends, however, were more Nazelia's than mine. Berta and Bo, we called them. Not even sure where it came from, but it stuck. I was never really a fan of either of them. The two of them always liked to thrill seek. They seemed to look for trouble, and surely when Nazelia followed, they'd seemingly get her in trouble. But I always went when I could, because I always found ways to be the level-headed one when Nazelia would decide to tag along. A house not too far from our neighborhood had been abandoned our whole lives. Locals told stories of what had happened there, though they were all completely different versions, and everyone just knew of it to be haunted. There were many different stories of the place. The most popular told of a husband who'd gotten possessed one night after the family had been haunted, killing his wife and 2 little girls. It's said that one of the little girls' souls never crossed on, and that she can be seen in the windows at night crying, sometimes with her father following behind. I'd never noticed anything other than dirt and empty liquor cans when I'd walked by, but the townsmen said otherwise. There had even been ghost tours around Halloween, Overall, some pretty weird stuff. One night, my sister came running in my room, all excited and telling me to get ready. Beau had invited us out, but this night was special. I told her I didn't feel like going, but she kept convincing me how fun it would be, not wanting to tell me what we had planned. I guess the plan was to have a few drinks at Berta's house and then go exploring that local haunted house. Apparently, they knew a way in. The idea sounded stupid though. Locals kept an eye on that place, always calling in any strange activity. But I knew they wanted to go, and it was set to be torn down by end of summer. Everyone wanted one last look at the haunted house, and their first time deep inside it. I honestly really didn't want to go, and my sister could tell because her smile turned to a frown and she decided to text them no. But this made me feel terrible. Even if I didn't like Berta and Beau, I loved my sister more than anyone, and I never wanted her sad. Even more, I didn't want her drinking with those two because it never ended well, let alone heading to an abandoned house after. So against my better judgment and to my regret, I got dressed and we went. My sister wasn't normally a big drinker, and they knew this, but that didn't stop them from pushing her to take the shots. Before I knew it, my sister was drunk, and I knew going home early wasn't going to be the option that I'd hoped for. Everyone was out the door next thing I knew, and stumbling up to the house up the road. I stayed sober all night, secretly hoping that someone might catch us fast and call it in, sending our night home early. You see, my sister could never tell when there was a bad idea in front of her, not even if it slapped her in the face. Not ever. I looked at the house as we approached it and remembered it looking so much older and bigger than I remembered. We walked around the back, the girls giggling and stumbling. I thought there was no way in when Beau pointed towards a pile of trash bags and exposed an open window to the basement. Beau pulled out their camera and everybody started loading in, but I couldn't shake that I felt like something was very amiss. I really didn't want to go in there, but before I could even ask my sister to go home, there was my drunk older sister in there yelling for me to follow, and I knew I had no choice. If anything, I had to look out for her. I leaped down and immediately felt weird. The home was abandoned, but in a time capsule way. There was still furniture there, but it was so worn down it was hard to tell what it had been like in its prime. Little ballet flats lay in the middle of the basement next to a bunch of children's toys and standing mirrors. The mirrors didn't seem that old. They were clean, lined up in rows, but everything else was filthy and gross. Everyone kind of scattered among the basement looking around. Beau was filming everything they could, and everything seemed to be okay, other than the fact we were in a disgusting abandoned home we shouldn't be in. But Beau was the only one who had thought to bring a flashlight, and I really did struggle to see even a few feet in front of me. That was when I heard a big clunk and looked over to see Beau and Berta sitting on the floor, their flashlight shining on a board in front of them. I could make out that it was some sort of homemade Ouija board. Around it, the two of them placed candles, setting up some sort of a seance. I shot them a look, and they laughed, saying it was the only chance they'd have to try to talk to these ghosts and they weren't going to waste it. I wanted nothing to do with this, but my sister seemed pulled in. I rolled my eyes as they started talking to a spirit that was quick to communicate. Specifically, it seemed as though it really liked my sister, though I was convinced it was Beau and Berta making the whole experience. Nonetheless, my sister loved it and started talking with this ghost on a deeper level. I don't know if it was her drinking that was irritating me or the fact they were all seemingly having so much fun in the space where a tragedy had happened. I couldn't shake the fact that murder had taken place here, and this wasn't just some random abandoned place. So I decided I was going to go walk towards the exit and let them do whatever they wanted to do. My sister wasn't even big on this stuff. We'd only ever talked about that house a handful of times growing up, and we'd lived there our whole lives. As usual, it seemed that she was just doing whatever those two idiots told her to do. I should have stayed. I should have watched what they told her to do. I'll never really know what happened. All I know next is I heard a scream, and I ran towards the flashlight. It was darker now because my eyes had been looking out the window towards streetlights, and now I was back in the pitch black. As I got towards them, Bo and Berta were stood in shock with their single light towards the mirrors. My eyes quickly followed, and I saw my sister, mouth gaping wide open, screaming at her reflection into the mirror. Her eyes were wide, but empty. I ran up to her, shaking her, yelling for her to answer me. But suddenly she fell to the floor. Her body began convulsing, moving in ways around the candle-lit room that didn't even seem human-like. I did my best to stay there, holding my sister as she was screaming. A few minutes later, she came to, looking at me confused. I would have thought she was messing with me if her nose didn't start pouring as she leaned over to spew. And just as I expected, Berta and Bo had fled. I carried my drunk sister home, and she stayed silent the whole night. For days, she didn't speak. I didn't hear from Berta or Bo, so when they came into our work a few days later, I screamed at them, asking what the hell had happened, telling them that something had happened when they played that board. The girls wouldn't speak to me, just like my sister. They never have since. One night later, I woke up to my sister standing at the end of my bed looking terrified. When I asked her what was wrong, she didn't answer me. Slowly, her nose just started bleeding. She claimed that she was probably sleepwalking the next day, and then she just went back to bed. Mid-afternoon, my sister wouldn't speak, but would scream in the night. She ended up getting fired from her job. She wasn't my sister. But things would get even darker and fast. One night, I woke up to what sounded like claws scratching along our hardwood floors, and my sister whispering. I slowly walked out of my room and up our short hall, where I would see my sister, absent-minded faced, crawling on the floor around a piece of paper. As I got close, her hands got more manic. I looked down and saw that she was drawing perfectly the mirrors from the basement. My sister had never been this talented at art, but it was perfect. I looked at the drawing and saw what appeared to be my sister standing in the mirror, jaw open, but behind her, she had drawn a pale little girl with blood coming from her nose, and a black shadow man behind her. My sister stopped drawing as if she was suddenly aware of my presence. She looked up, her eyes going even darker, until they suddenly went blue and filled with tears. She looked into my soul, my sister back for a moment, and said, "They won't let me go." I ran to the bathroom to spew, and when I returned, the absent-minded face was back on my sister. She was screaming, jaw open, eyes black. Her feet began hovering above the hardwood floor. She kept screaming and raising higher. I tried to run and grab her, grabbing her wrists to pull her down. She dropped to the floor and began crawling toward me, her legs moving in a non-human way like that night in the home. "Go," she kept spewing. "I don't want you here." I couldn't move my body. It was as if I had become paralyzed. My sister put her hands towards the corner walls of the room and started climbing them, like what I'd only seen in movies, hissing at me in a tongue I couldn't understand. I wanted to move, but I couldn't as photos fell from our walls and my sister laughed in the corner of the room, but it didn't sound like her. Finally, my body came to, and I ran to my sister, her body giving out and collapsing down. I called an ambulance and rushed my sister to the hospital, trying to explain what had happened. They didn't believe me. I could hear doctors saying I'd suffered a breakdown and my sister had likely had a seizure. They knew I was ill and that I was dying. They didn't believe what I'd seen. She's on a lot of medications. I'm sure the seizure just traumatized her. I wanted to yell at them when they told me to just go home and get some rest, but I couldn't blame them. I hadn't slept in over a week, and I needed it. With her there now, I felt I could finally rest. The doctor told me to come back the next day when they would have more results, and I left. I regret leaving. I will always regret leaving. I went home and tried to sleep but couldn't get much rest. The next day, the unthinkable happened.
According to the hospital, my sister left willingly and by choice some point at the early hours of that morning. As far as they knew, she had suffered a seizure, but she said she'd follow up. My sister had never came home. Journals found in her room would disclose that she had been writing in Latin. Drawings of that mirror and the bloody-nosed girl over and over again filled her pages. I almost attached the pictures here, but I fear what they might mean. I don't want to subject anybody else to them. And law enforcement never found them any bit useful. I was told she likely ran away, maybe with a boy. These theories were never more than that, simply theories, because my sister would have never left me. Not willingly. We only had each other, and she knew I've only had so long left. But the truth is, she never returned. And as time went on, the image in my mind of her crawling and climbing and floating in ways that weren't human-like have haunted me. Law enforcement asked me to remember anything useful, and while nothing seemed useful to them, it did to me. Nothing was the same with her after that night in the house. But by then, it had already been torn down. Bo and Berta never wanted to tell me what happened, but some people would get it out of them. Apparently, the spirit of a little girl began talking with them through the board and asked my sister to walk to the mirror where her and her daddy were. When she did, they said she placed her 2 hands on the mirror. As her eyes went dark and her mouth dropped, she started to scream, and then I ran over. I dug deeper into the house history over the past few years. Turns out it was darker than we thought. The family before the last, the grandfather, had been going to the doctor, claiming lapses in time and night terrors. His daughter was claiming that he would become violent, speak in tongue, and talk about some darkness nonstop. Within that week, he would brutally murder his wife and disappear. They never found him, but during an investigation, they'd find a note claiming, "The evil made me do it," along with dark scribbles of a childlike figure. The family after theirs, as we all know, story went the dad went and killed his wife and kids. The new local legend tells of an evil that chooses its prey. Now they say it lives in the land, since the walls are gone. They say it takes people over and then does with them and others as it wants. I've spent many years making up stories of my sister's disappearance, the theories that may have happened, the happier endings. I even tried to imagine that maybe she did leave me and she's living happier somewhere else. Everyone has their theory. None as out there as the real one, I believe. But then again, nobody else saw her lift off the floor, absent-eyed and bloody-nosed, climbing our walls and hissing. No one knew her like me, and I knew from the moment that we crawled out of that house that I was dragging away the shell of my sister. It was never her from the moment we left. Never like she was, at least, again. I don't know what happened to my sister or what she became wherever she went. I cry as I write this because it seems the devil stole my best friend. When I go to heaven, I wonder if I'll see her, or if her soul is too far stolen now. As my life comes to an end, I can say with certainty that evil exists because evil was among me, and evil stole someone I loved. Be careful. The ones you love could become prey to it too. By the time you read this, I'm probably gone. I hope I've found peace somewhere. But if there is a peaceful afterlife, I hope my sister found it too, and that she was waiting there for me, really her, with open arms. I hope to see you soon, sissy. They can't keep us from each other forever. That story is absolutely chilling to me. I couldn't imagine someone that I love experiencing something to that degree and then just simply disappearing and never knowing what happened to them. I wish there were more details about the investigative side of it, like what law enforcement was saying, what the hospital really said once they realized that she never returned anywhere. There are so many question marks in my mind surrounding this experience, and that's where I want to turn this over to you guys and ask you, what do you think happened? And where do you think her sister ended up? One thing I will say is that if there was some sort of darkness there, the girls walking in there drunk and trying to communicate with the other side may have let down protective walls and opened doors they didn't even realize they were. And that's very, very eerie to me. What do you guys think of this experience? I would absolutely love to know down in the comment section below. And that is it for today's experience. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed, but you do enjoy my content, I would absolutely love it more than you would ever know if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. I am uploading every single day this month, so if you enjoy my content, I would hate for you to miss it. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until tomorrow, I love you. Bye, guys.